Buster, obviously, this is some enormous stuff here. Break down a little bit for the fans who were just reading it casually, some of the most important pieces of this in your mind.
The fact that it is potentially for Major League Baseball an anti-tanking measure. Greeny, we've seen in recent years the tremendous polarization of the standings where you have the super teams like the Astros, the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. And what we've seen on the other side is a lot of teams basically looking at those super teams and saying, you know what, we can't compete. We're going to dive for the bottom of the standings. We're going to try to pick first in the draft or second in the draft. And I think that works against that and potentially gives more hope to more teams. Imagine if you're a fan of the San Diego Padres. You haven't made the playoffs since 2006. You haven't been at 500 in 10 years. You're better in 2020, but you know what? The Dodgers are at the top of your division, having won 7 straight National League West crowns. This type of thing would give you more hope for the players, more hope for the franchise.
Absolutely. So it accomplishes a couple of things. It combats tanking, or at least takes a step in that direction, and it makes for more interesting games as the season goes on. I mean, the attendance has been way down, and at least part of the reason for that is that it feels like half the sports season is over by the time we get to the 1st of August. This should address that as well.
That's exactly right. Jerry Dipoto, the general manager of the Seattle Mariners, said something a couple of years ago that baseball in recent years has gotten to the point where there's many teams fighting for the bottom of the standings as they are for the top of the standings. And now if you're a small market team, especially, I think if you're the Cleveland Indians, if you're the Padres, and you have an opportunity to get better with 1 or 2 moves in July, there'd be incentive to do that, to go from 84 to 87 wins.
All right, so I consider myself an open-minded person. When I first read this, anytime you hear a projection or a suggestion of something that is this radical of a change, there's a little skepticism that creeps in. My initial reaction to this now, having studied a little and listened to you, is I think I like it. Overall, is that what you're hearing? I'll get to Trevor Bauer in a second, but overall, from the people you've talked to, do people generally like it?
The baseball people I've talked to are open-minded the way you are, because they look at baseball in recent years and they feel like, look, we have to make changes. And let's face it, baseball has more traditionalists than any other sport. I was one of those in the 90s when Bud Selig put in the wild card game. I thought it was a terrible idea. And you know what? I was completely wrong. It was a great idea. It drew in more fans, more teams, more players, gave them more opportunity to share in that October experience.
I agree with you. And the second wild card, which creates more significance on winning a division, all of that. So the changes thus far have worked out in our view. Now let's talk about what some of the players' reaction may be. And I want to put up the tweet from Trevor Bauer, who is known to be a very outspoken player and at times says things that people find difficult, one way or another. This is what he tweeted. He tweeted, "No idea who made this new playoff format proposal, but Rob is responsible for releasing it. So I'll direct this to you, Rob Manfred. Your proposal is absurd for too many reasons to type on Twitter and proves you have absolutely no clue about baseball. You're a joke." Buster, do we have any sense as to the degree to which he is speaking for other players? Do we have a sense of what other players think about these proposed changes?
Yeah, not yet. And it's why today I'm here at Yankees camp. I'm really curious to have conversations with players about the idea. And I earnestly want to hear specifically what Trevor Bauer's objections are, because it does feel like a system where it's potentially going to create more money for the players, more opportunity, more competitiveness among teams, more incentive for teams to try to get better during the year and during the offseason. That would all seem to be a good thing for players. So I'm really curious specifically what he doesn't like about the plan.
Yeah, but it's also an illustration of how sometimes the traditionalists you're talking about are the players themselves. They are the hardest ones to convince that any change is a good idea, and so that might be the biggest challenge that the commissioner faces. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports, highlights, and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.